vermicelli works very much like thread vermicelli, except that we're going to be adding seed beads to the stitches. Thread vermicelli is done on the surface, seed bead vermicelli is done from the back, but it's essentially the same thing. It's an irregular squiggly line, in this case of seed beads. So I'm going to just start with a regular basic stitch and then just follow the lines, the squiggly lines that I've lightly drawn on my organza with a continuous row of seed beads. Depending on the size of your bead, you have to adjust the size and scale of your squiggly lines because you don't want them to be too small for the beads or too close. Now I'm just moving along and doing an alternative, which is a stitch or two and then a seed bead, a stitch of two of thread, then a seed bead, which gives a very different effect on the other side. It's a little bit less dense than continuous rows of seed beads. Now I'm doing what's called a closed vermicelli, which is a seed bead with every stitch, but in every stitch the angle is different. So you can see now how the squiggly lines are very, very, very compact. It's not a hard technique to do. What it is it allows you to fill an area with seed beads that are not necessarily in a pattern, but in just a texture of beads. And it's a very useful technique to use for filling small areas of a motif, because it just packs seed beads in very, very, very tightly. Again, it's still a continuous squiggly line where no two beads are following in the same direction. So you change direction after each bead. It takes a little bit of practice because you're, again, changing the angle of your stitch with every seed bead, so you always have to be aware of where that front of that hook and the back of that hook is located, so you don't lose a stitch. Also, as I'm doing this, I will also run my fingers along the underside to make sure that I haven't tried to put two beads in the place of one, or that they're too tightly packed that they're standing up on top of each other. But it's a really nice little technique to fill areas with a texture of beads. And that's how it looks on the surface. You can see the starting point where I did the continuous line. Now that could cover a whole area of a garment, or in this case, with a space between the beads. If I were to do this, I would usually use a metallic thread so I have a little bit of sparkle between it. And then the whole area completely filled with seed beads that have no pattern to it. They're just a random collection. Another technique you could do with seed beads is standing loops and looped edgings. And these are great fun to do. These standing loops work very nicely as centers of flowers. Always starts with the basic beginning stitch. And just as a point of reference, I'm going to take a stitch to fit one seed bead so that you get the sense. This is how it works, as we just saw in the previous clip, the space to take one seed bead. Now, if I take that same size stitch, but I take a whole string of seed beads, you can count them or I just randomly grab them and pull it up in the space of one stitch, then what happens is you get a loop of seed beads that are standing basically on the other side of the fabric. I take an extra little stitch after that just to secure it before I go and grab another group of seed beads, and continue to do that with a stitch in between, and then that helps to hold them in place. You can start by counting your beads, maybe a loop with 7 beads, and maybe one with 9, and maybe one with 11 or 13, to make them in different sizes and different heights. But when you pack them in together quite tightly like this, they become a really interesting center to a flower that is actually standing up. Now, to do a looped row of looped seed beads, like a looped fringe, we're going to do Again, the ever popular beginning stitch, but you'll notice that I have it all marked very carefully along a straight line. And I put my needle in straight up and down, and then as I push the beads across it, this is how many beads would fit between the beginning and end of the stitch. Well, that's just a straight line of them. I want to make it have a little bit of volume to it, so I'm taking more than what will fit in there. And instead of making it a tight loop, it makes it a open loop, like that. And you can, once you get a size that you like, you can count the beads and do the same number of beads with each time. Now I'm going back, going 2 spots over, because I'm going to come back and use those other dots. And I'm doing the exact same thing, just catching a group of beads and testing before I go too far to make sure that they are roughly the same length, or have the same contour. And I take a little side stitch. And I will just continue along my design line with this same technique. Works great on the edge of cuffs or on collars, or even even across an entire design. But it is important that your spacing is regular and you maintain the same number of beads in your loops so that they stay roughly the same, or ideally exactly the same. Once you've done a few of them, you can pretty much guess, eyeball the lengths. And if, like in that case, it's a little too long, I just remove 1 or 2 beads and try again. That looks a little better. They're pretty even now. Now I'm just going to take a little stitch here, and now I'm going to go stitch back to those other points that are between these lines to right here, and again do the same thing, and I can either make these loops shorter or longer or about the same. I'm going to make them not quite as deep as the first ones. Take my stitch, take a little locking stitch, and then go ahead to the next one. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that you don't put your hook on, you always keep your hook on the same side of the beads as you're going. Otherwise, they're going to be, you're not going to have an nicely overlapping layer of loops. They'll be kind of twisted among themselves, and they won't look quite as nice. So I finished there, and that's how it will look on the other side. 2 rows of overlapping loops. Here's from the front. Here's our overlapping loops that they're actually standing upright. And here are our little standing loops that basically are staying put right like that.